Ladies, let's talk about something that's absolutely crucial but often overlooked: guarding your heart when dealing with men. Too many women have found themselves broken, disappointed, and emotionally drained because they gave their hearts away too soon, too easily, or to the wrong person. But understand this: guarding your heart is not about building walls so high that no one can get in. It's about protecting your peace, your energy, and your emotional well being while allowing love to flow in a healthy and fulfilling way. Too often, women give their hearts to a man before they even know who he truly is. They fall in love with potential, with words, with the idea of what he could be, instead of paying attention to the reality of who he actually is. This is why guarding your heart is essential. You have to observe, not just listen. A man can say all the right things, but what does his behavior show? Is he consistent? Does he follow through? Does he show you with actions that he respects and values you? Words are easy, but real love is demonstrated, not just spoken. A man's words can be charming, persuasive, and even intoxicating. He may say all the right things, tell you he adores you, that he sees a future with you, and that you're the best thing that's ever happened to him. But words alone mean nothing without action. If you want to guard your heart, you must train yourself to watch what he does rather than get caught up in the beautiful words he speaks. Actions will always reveal what a man truly feels and where his priorities lie. When a man genuinely values you, his actions will align with his words. He won't just say he cares about you, he will show up consistently. He won't just tell you that he respects you, he will respect your boundaries without resistance. He won't just promise to be there for you, he will make the effort to be present, support you, and make you feel secure in the connection. A man's actions will tell you how much he prioritizes you, and if his actions don't match his words, then his words mean nothing. One of the biggest mistakes many women make is falling for potential instead of reality. They hear a man's promises and assume that just because he said it, he must mean it. But real love, real commitment, and real effort are shown through consistency, reliability, and intentionality. If a man says he loves you but constantly lets you down, if he promises to change but continues the same behavior, then he is showing you exactly where he stands. It is your responsibility to believe him when his actions contradict his words. A man who is truly serious about you will not leave you guessing. He will not say one thing and do another. He will not make excuses, disappear for days, or leave you feeling uncertain about where you stand with him. Instead, he will take initiative. He will be clear about his feelings and back them up with intentional effort. He will not need to be begged to show up for you or to treat you with care and respect. His consistency will speak for itself. On the other hand, if a man says he wants to be with you but makes no real effort, then he is showing you the truth. If he claims to respect you but constantly crosses your boundaries, then he does not truly value you. If he keeps you in a cycle of confusion, hot and cold behavior, and mixed signals, then he is playing with your emotions rather than committing to you. This is why it is crucial to guard your heart by focusing on actions. Guarding your heart does not mean being closed off or distrusting every man you meet. It simply means being wise enough to let a man's actions speak louder than his words. It means not allowing yourself to be led by words that feel good, but by actions that prove his true intentions. Emotional attachment can be one of the most powerful forces in a relationship, but when given too soon, it can cloud your judgment and leave you vulnerable to heartbreak. Many women become emotionally invested in a man before he has truly proven himself worthy of their heart. This can lead to ignoring red flags, making excuses for his behavior, and staying in situations that are not healthy or fulfilling. Guarding your heart means allowing emotional attachment to develop gradually, not rushing into deep feelings before you have seen the full picture of who he is. One of the biggest mistakes people make is allowing chemistry and attraction to dictate their emotional investment. A man can make you feel a certain way, excited, wanted, and adored, but feelings alone should not be the foundation of a connection. Attraction is important, but it is not a reason to give your heart away. A man must be evaluated on his character, consistency, and the way he treats you, not just on how he makes you feel in the moment. When you give your heart too soon, you risk falling in love with an illusion rather than the reality of who he is. Taking time to truly get to know a man allows you to see how he responds to challenges, how he treats others, and whether his actions align with his words. Emotional attachment should be built on a solid foundation of trust, respect, and shared values. If you attach too soon, you may find yourself justifying bad behavior or settling for less than what you deserve simply because you feel emotionally connected. This is why patience is essential when it comes to matters of the heart. Guarding your heart does not mean shutting down emotionally or avoiding love altogether. It means being intentional about who you allow yourself to become emotionally connected with. It means recognizing that attachment should be earned through consistent actions over time, not given freely just because someone shows interest. A man who truly values you will not rush you into deep emotions before you are ready. Instead, he will respect your pace and put in the effort to build something real. A key way to protect your heart is to stay grounded in reality. Pay attention to whether he follows through on his commitments. Observe how he handles conflict, how he treats you when things don't go his way, and whether he is truly invested in your well being. When you allow time to reveal a man's true nature, you give yourself the power to choose wisely rather than be led purely by emotion. A major part of guarding your heart with men is setting and enforcing clear boundaries. Boundaries are not about controlling another person, they are about protecting yourself and ensuring that you are treated with the respect and consideration you deserve. Too often, women ignore their boundaries in an attempt to keep a man interested, believing that if they are more accommodating or flexible, he will appreciate them more. However, the reality is that when you fail to set boundaries, you teach a man that he can push your limits without consequence. Boundaries must be established early in a relationship, not after lines have already been crossed. It is important to know your personal limits when it comes to emotional availability, physical intimacy, communication, and the way you expect to be treated. When you set clear boundaries, you give a man the opportunity to respect them, and in doing so, you gain insight into his true character. A man who genuinely values you will not only respect your boundaries, but will also appreciate that you hold yourself to a standard. One of the challenges many women face is feeling guilty about enforcing boundaries. They worry that saying no, walking away from disrespect, or expressing their needs will push a man away. But the truth is, the right man will be drawn to a woman who values herself enough to set limits. A man who gets upset or tries to manipulate you into lowering your boundaries is showing you a red flag that should not be ignored. Your boundaries are a reflection of your self-worth, and any man who does not respect them is not worthy of your time or energy. Having strong boundaries also helps you filter out the wrong men quickly. When a man realizes that he cannot get away with inconsistent behavior, broken promises, or disrespect, he will either step up or step away. This is a good thing because it means you are not wasting time on someone who does not have the capacity to love and respect you the way you deserve. Setting boundaries is enforcing them. It is not enough to state your boundaries if you are not willing to take action when they are crossed. If you tell a man that certain behavior is unacceptable but continue to entertain him when he disregards your limits, he will not take you seriously. You must be willing to walk away from anyone who refuses to respect what you have made clear. Guarding your heart means valuing yourself enough to stand firm in what you need and deserve in a relationship. Guarding your heart with men requires you to trust your intuition. Too often, women ignore the red flags they sense early on, dismissing their gut feelings in favor of hope, potential, or simply not wanting to be alone. But your intuition is one of the most powerful tools you have when it comes to protecting your heart. It's that quiet voice that warns you when something feels off, that uneasy feeling when a man's words and actions don't align, or that subtle nudge that tells you to take a step back. Many times, women override their intuition because they want to believe the best in a man. They make excuses for inconsistencies, rationalize away warning signs, or convince themselves that they are just being overly cautious. But time and time again, when things don't work out, they look back and realize that their intuition had been trying to tell them the truth all along. Learning to listen to your gut and act accordingly is essential if you want to avoid unnecessary heartbreak. Trusting your intuition does not mean being paranoid or expecting the worst from every man you meet. It means being in tune with your emotions, paying attention to patterns, and not ignoring behavior that doesn't sit well with you. If something feels off, there is usually a reason for it, even if you can't logically explain why. That feeling alone is enough to warrant stepping back and assessing the situation more carefully. A big part of strengthening your intuition is being honest with yourself. Sometimes women silence their gut feelings because they are afraid of what it means. They don't want to walk away from someone they have already invested in. They don't want to start over. And they don't want to face the possibility that they may be wasting their time. But ignoring the truth does not change it. The longer you avoid listening to your intuition, the more painful the lesson will become. To sharpen your intuition is to be mindful of how you feel when you are around a man. Do you feel safe? Do you feel at ease? Or do you feel anxious, unsure, or emotionally drained? Your body and emotions are constantly giving you information. A man who is right for you will not bring confusion or uncertainty into your life. He will not leave you questioning his intentions or feeling uneasy about where you stand. It is also important to trust your intuition even when others don't understand it. Sometimes friends or family may encourage you to give a man a chance when you already feel something is not right. But no one else can feel what you feel or see what you see. Your intuition is personal, and learning to trust it without seeking external validation is a key part of guarding your heart. Setting clear boundaries is essential when it comes to guarding your heart with men. Too often, women find themselves in situations where they feel emotionally drained, disrespected, or taken for granted because they never set clear expectations from the start. Boundaries are not about controlling a man or forcing him to act a certain way. They are about defining what is acceptable to you and protecting your emotional well being. One of the biggest mistakes women make is assuming that a man should just know what they need or expect. But the truth is, if you don't communicate your boundaries, you cannot expect someone to honor them. A man will treat you based on the standards you set, and if you allow behavior that makes you uncomfortable, he will continue it. This is why it's so important to be upfront about what you will and will not tolerate. Boundaries also help filter out the wrong men early on. A man who genuinely respects you will have no issue with the boundaries you set. He won't push back, manipulate, or guilt trip you into bending them for his convenience. On the other hand, a man who disregards your boundaries or tries to test your limits is showing you early on that he is not emotionally mature or ready to provide the kind of relationship you deserve. Many women struggle with enforcing their boundaries because they fear losing a man. They worry that if they say no, set limits, or demand respect, he will walk away. But a man who truly values you will not leave. Because you have standards, he will respect you more for them. Boundaries do not push away the right man, they expose the wrong one. Setting boundaries is being consistent. It's not enough to state your boundaries once and then ignore them when emotions get involved. If you allow a man to cross a boundary once without consequence, he will assume it was never a real boundary to begin with. Consistency reinforces self-respect, and it teaches a man how to treat you. Emotional boundaries are just as important as physical ones. Many women give too much of their hearts too soon, investing emotionally before a man has even proven himself. This leads to disappointment and heartbreak when he does not reciprocate at the same level. It's okay to take your time, observe a man's actions, and ensure that he is worthy of your emotional investment before you give too much of yourself. Boundaries also apply to communication and availability. You do not have to be accessible 24/7, respond to every message immediately, or accommodate a man's every request. Having your own life priorities and self-respect will naturally make a man see you as high value. The right man will appreciate your boundaries because he will recognize that they come from a place of self-love and emotional security. Trusting your intuition is one of the most powerful ways to guard your heart with men. Too often, women ignore their gut feelings because they want to believe in potential rather than reality. They make excuses for a man's behavior, hoping he will change, rather than acknowledging the red flags that were there from the beginning. Your intuition is a built-in warning system designed to protect you, and when something feels off, it usually is. One of the reasons women dismiss their intuition is because they don't want to seem judgmental or overly cautious. They convince themselves that they need more proof before they take action. But the truth is, your spirit recognizes things before your mind fully processes them. You may not be able to explain why you feel uneasy about a man's actions, but that does not mean your feelings are invalid. If you constantly feel unsettled, anxious, or confused in a relationship, that is your intuition trying to tell you something. Ignoring your intuition often leads to heartbreak. Women look back on past relationships and realize they saw the signs but chose to ignore them. They felt something wasn't right, but they allowed their emotions, attachment, or fear of being alone to override that inner voice. The pain of hindsight is far worse than the temporary discomfort of walking away when something doesn't feel right. Your intuition speaks to you in different ways. Sometimes it's a nagging feeling that something isn't adding up. Other times it's a sense of peace or discomfort around a person. Pay attention to how your body reacts when you are with a man. Do you feel relaxed, safe, and comfortable? Or do you feel anxious, uneasy, or like you have to prove yourself? Your body and emotions pick up on things that your conscious mind may not immediately recognize. It's important to separate intuition from insecurity. Insecurity is rooted in fear, and past wounds, while intuition is a knowing and independent of outside influences. If you constantly suspect every man of wrongdoing with no basis, that may be a sign of unresolved trust issues. But if a specific situation or pattern keeps triggering concern, that is worth paying attention to. One way to strengthen your intuition is by giving yourself the space to reflect. When you are always caught up in emotions or distractions, it's easy to overlook what your spirit is telling you. Taking time to journal, pray, meditate, or simply sit in silence allows you to tune into your inner wisdom. The more you listen to your intuition, the stronger it becomes and the more confident you will feel in your decisions. A man who is right for you will not make you feel uneasy. He will not leave you in a constant state of questioning or confusion. The right relationship brings clarity, not chaos. Trusting your intuition is not about being paranoid or assuming the worst. It's about honoring yourself enough to listen when something doesn't feel right. Setting clear boundaries is essential when it comes to guarding your heart with men. Too often, women hesitate to establish firm boundaries because they fear pushing a man away or being seen as difficult. But the reality is, boundaries are not about controlling others, they are about protecting yourself. When you set healthy boundaries, you teach people how to treat you and you filter out those who are not willing to respect your needs. Many women enter relationships without a clear understanding of their own limits. They are so focused on making things work that they ignore their own discomfort. They allow certain behaviors to slide, thinking that love means sacrifice. But when you constantly compromise your own well-being to accommodate a man, you are not guarding your heart, you are handing it over without protection. Boundaries are necessary because they prevent resentment, emotional exhaustion, and heartbreak. A lack of boundaries often leads to unhealthy attachment. When you don't set limits, you end up tolerating behaviors that drain you emotionally. You may allow a man to speak to you in a disrespectful manner, make excuses for his inconsistency, or accept less effort than you deserve. Over time, this chips away at your self-worth and creates a cycle where you settle for less than you truly desire. Setting boundaries from the beginning ensures that you do not lose yourself in the process of loving someone else. Boundaries should be communicated clearly and without hesitation. If something makes you uncomfortable, it is your responsibility to speak up. If a man dismisses your feelings or makes you feel guilty for enforcing your standards, that is a clear sign he is not the right person for you. The right man will respect your boundaries and appreciate the clarity they provide. He will not try to manipulate or pressure you into ignoring what is best for you. Emotional boundaries are just as important as physical ones. Guarding your heart means not giving too much of yourself too soon. It means allowing trust and emotional intimacy to develop over time rather than rushing into deep vulnerability with someone who has not yet proven himself. Some women pour their emotions into a man before he has even shown he is capable of handling that responsibility. They share their deepest fears and desires with someone who has not earned that level of access. Protecting your heart means pacing yourself and ensuring that emotional intimacy is mutual, not one-sided. Boundaries also help you maintain self-respect. When you honor your limits, you reinforce the belief that your feelings and needs matter. You show yourself that you are worthy of love that aligns with your values and expectations. This self-respect becomes a natural filter, keeping away those who do not align with what you truly deserve. The more you practice setting and maintaining boundaries, the more confident you become in your ability to protect your heart. Trusting your intuition is one of the most powerful ways to guard your heart with men. Too often, women ignore the subtle feelings that tell them something isn't right. They explain away red flags, give the benefit of the doubt, or assume they are just overthinking. But intuition is not paranoia, it is wisdom. It is your inner voice warning you before your heart gets too deeply invested in the wrong person. When you feel uneasy about something a man says or does, don't dismiss it. Pay attention to those small hesitations, those moments where something doesn't sit right with you. Many women have experienced situations where they felt something was off but ignored their instincts. Maybe a man's words didn't align with his actions, but they convinced themselves he just needed time. Maybe they sensed emotional distance but believed that if they showed more love, he would come closer. Ignoring intuition often leads to heartbreak because it allows you to stay in situations that do not serve you. When you listen to your gut, you save yourself from unnecessary pain by recognizing when something isn't right early on. A key part of trusting your intuition is being honest with yourself. Sometimes women are afraid to admit when a man isn't treating them the way they deserve because they don't want to face the reality of walking away. But guarding your heart requires the courage to acknowledge the truth, even when it is difficult. When you feel uncertainty, don't brush it aside. Reflect on where that feeling is coming from. Is it insecurity or is it a real warning sign? Your intuition will never mislead you when you are willing to listen. Your emotions can cloud your judgment, which is why it's important to balance intuition with logic. Feelings alone should not be the foundation of your decisions. A man may make you feel good in certain moments, but if his actions are inconsistent, your intuition may be telling you that something isn't right. Instead of focusing solely on how much you like him, pay attention to whether he is showing up in a way that aligns with your needs. When something feels off, take the time to observe and assess the situation before making excuses for him. Trusting your intuition does not mean assuming the worst about every man you meet. It means being aware and discerning. It means recognizing when your body and mind are sending you signals that something needs to be questioned. The more you listen to your intuition, the more confident you become in protecting your heart. Instead of allowing emotions to override logic, you become grounded in the awareness that you deserve to be in a relationship that feels safe, secure, and aligned with your values. Setting emotional boundaries is essential when it comes to guarding your heart with men. Too often, women give too much emotionally before a man has truly earned that level of access to them. They invest their feelings, their time, and their energy into someone who has not yet demonstrated that he is capable of handling their heart with care. Emotional boundaries are about protecting your well being, ensuring that you are not overextending yourself in a situation that does not provide the same level of commitment in return. One of the biggest mistakes people make is opening up too quickly, sharing their deepest thoughts, fears, and desires with someone who has not yet proven themselves trustworthy. Vulnerability is a beautiful thing, but it must be given at the right time to the right person. A man should not have access to your heart simply because he shows interest in you. He should earn that access by consistently showing up, respecting your emotions, and demonstrating that he is genuinely invested in building something real with you. When you lack emotional boundaries, you may find yourself overcommitting to a man who has not yet made his intentions clear. You may feel emotionally drained because you are constantly pouring into someone without receiving the same energy in return. This creates an imbalance where you feel attached to someone who may not be as invested as you are. Emotional boundaries help prevent this by allowing you to pace the relationship and ensure that you are not giving too much too soon. Emotional boundaries is learning to manage your expectations. Many times, people become attached to a fantasy rather than the reality of who a man truly is. They project their desires onto him, believing that he has the potential to be the perfect partner, even when his actions suggest otherwise. Emotional boundaries help you stay grounded in reality, allowing you to see a man for who he truly is rather than who you hope he will become. Having emotional boundaries also means knowing when to walk away. If a man is inconsistent, emotionally unavailable, or unwilling to meet your needs, you have to be willing to protect your heart by distancing yourself from that situation. Too often, people stay in situations longer than they should, hoping that things will change. But guarding your heart means recognizing when something is not serving you and having the strength to step back. Emotional boundaries also allow you to maintain a sense of self within a relationship. When you give too much emotionally, you may start to lose your identity in the process. You may prioritize his needs over your own, sacrificing your happiness in an attempt to make the relationship work. But a healthy relationship should never require you to abandon yourself. Emotional boundaries help you stay connected to who you are, ensuring that your happiness and well being remain a priority. Trusting your intuition is one of the most powerful ways to guard your heart with men. Too often, people ignore the inner voice that warns them when something feels off. They dismiss red flags, make excuses for behaviors that don't align with their values, and hold on to relationships that don't serve them. But intuition is a gift, a natural instinct designed to protect you from harm. It is not something to be overlooked or second guessed. Learning to trust and follow your intuition will save you from heart attacks and guide you toward relationships that are truly fulfilling. One of the reasons intuition is so powerful is that it picks up on things that your conscious mind might not immediately recognize. It's that uneasy feeling you get when a man's words and actions don't align. It's the subtle shift in energy when he starts becoming distant. It's the discomfort you feel when something just doesn't seem right, even if you can't quite put your finger on why. Many people silence their intuition because they don't want to believe what it's telling them. They want to see the best in someone, they want to be hopeful, they want to avoid facing the possibility that the relationship isn't what they thought it was. but ignoring your intuition will always cost you more in the long run. Listening to your intuition requires you to slow down and pay attention to your feelings. When you get that gut feeling that something isn't right, don't brush it off. Take a step back, observe, and ask yourself what your instincts are trying to tell you. If you feel uneasy in a situation, there's a reason for it. Your emotions and body responses are picking up on something, even if you can't logically explain it at the moment. By honoring that feeling instead of dismissing it, you protect yourself from being blindsided later. Another important part of trusting your intuition is not allowing outside opinions to override what you already know deep down. Friends, family, or even the man himself might try to convince you that you're overreacting, that you're being too sensitive, or that you're expecting too much. But you are the one who has to live with the consequences of ignoring what your gut is telling you. Seeking advice is fine, but never let someone else's words talk you out of what you already feel to be true. You know what feels right and what doesn't, and your intuition will never steer you wrong. The more you trust your intuition, the stronger it becomes. You start to recognize patterns, understand warning signs more quickly, and make decisions with confidence. You stop second guessing yourself and start standing firm in what you know to be right for you. When you listen to your intuition, you create a foundation of self-trust, which is essential for guarding your heart. You won't waste time entertaining the wrong situations because you'll be able to sense when something is off early on. You'll walk away from anything that doesn't serve you, not because someone told you to, but because you trust yourself enough to know when something isn't right. At the end of the day, guarding your heart isn't about living in fear of love. It's about being wise. It's about loving yourself enough to not give your heart away recklessly. It's about knowing that real love isn't something you have to chase or force. It's something that flows effortlessly when you're with the right person. So protect your heart, move with wisdom, and trust that the love meant for you will never require you to abandon yourself to receive it.